Welcome to the Tech Talks podcast. Today, I'm going to be talking about compounding marginal gains and why just focusing on the small little things is actually the secret to success. So first off, I'll kind of define what compounding marginal gains means, and then I'll kind of provide some context with a few specific examples to my life and how I've kind of used this idea recently, and then kind of try and tie it together with some of the concepts that I've talked about the last couple of weeks when I've done these solo episodes. So first, what does compounding marginal gains mean? So when you think of marginal gains, that's just a small improvement and compounding that over time. So what you're really thinking is just taking little steps forward, whether that's a skill, whether that's saving money, whatever it might be. It's really just keeping a long-term approach and accumulating small incremental changes or improvements over time. So that's really what it means. I think most people, when they think of compound, they think of compound interest. So that's, you make some sort of investment or you have some sort of expense and the interest compounds over time. So slowly and surely over time, that sum of money increases. So that's kind of what I mean when I'm saying compounding marginal gains, and why I think that's the secret for success is twofold. One, obviously, you're focusing more on the process of getting to where you're going rather than just focusing on the end goal, which I always think is a better strategy. But then also it makes it a little bit more like bite-sized and actionable, right? So last week I was kind of talking about motivation and extrinsic versus intrinsic and how that kind of relates to where we're at in the world right now during all this COVID stuff. And if your sole focus is on the end, like I talked about last week, you're going to probably get pretty discouraged. Whereas if you're just focusing on these small incremental gains or compounding marginal gains over time, you're more focused on what are you doing today? And then what's tomorrow? And then what's the day after that? So instead of thinking of this like far out big picture idea, you're really focused more on the small little steps that you're going to take to get there. So I find that taking that approach obviously is just a little better. It helps you get started. It makes things a little more actionable right off the get-go, and it gives you a bunch of tiny wins along the way, right? Every day you can feel good about yourself because you got that 1% better, and you made a small improvement that day. So I was going to say like a few like specific examples to myself and how this kind of relates is like even this podcast. Are some of the episodes like even technically a podcast? I don't really know. It's something I've never done before. Like, yeah, I've had some cool guests on. I've interviewed some people kind of throughout North America and had some what I would consider a true podcast kind of episodes. But I've also had episodes where it's literally just me sitting here at my desk talking to the screen like I'm doing right now. And when you go to start something new, you probably suck. So I've always wanted to have a podcast just because it's been a super influential learning opportunity for me. I probably listen to 4 or 5 podcasts a week for the last 5 or 6 years. Okay, so even that unintentionally, that in and of itself is an example of compounding marginal gains. Right? Every time I listen to a podcast, I get a little bit smarter about something, and that accumulates over time, and then I learn new stuff. But that's not where I was technically going with that. Where I was going with this is I've never done something like this before. It's something I wanted to do. I've never done it. I guarantee I'm going to suck at it. I have zero experience doing it. I'm probably going to suck. So what I said to myself is, you know what? I'm going to just do it. I'm going to commit to doing it every Friday, whether it's with a guest, whether it's by myself. I'm just going to commit to doing it. So that's just, I know that if I want to get better at the thing, I have to do the thing, and I have to try and just get a little bit better each week. So each week I sit down, whether it's with a guest, by myself, and I try and just be a little bit better than I was the week before. Now that's pretty easy to do off the get-go because I'm not very good, but I'm keeping that long-term vision. If I want to have a podcast that people like to listen to and that's providing value and useful information for people, then I got to get through that suck period. And to do that, I just have to compound marginal gains each week. So that's a specific example to this show and to myself. Another one, this last like 10 days here, I've been kind of tearing through my backyard. So when I first look at it, it's a daunting project. I mean, it's probably 30 feet up along the side fence on either side, and then probably 50 feet along the back. And it's all 6 feet tall weeds. It looks like a mess. It's absolutely just a gong show. But I just kind of broke it down. I thought, okay, if I just focus on how daunting this project is, I'll probably never want to start. But I'm just like, all right, first day, I'm gonna get like some hedge trimmers, and I'm gonna cut all the weeds from 6 feet tall down to like a foot and a half tall. So I just chop everything, and then I'll rake that all out, and that's good for one day. And then the next day, so that's just like a small improvement that day. Then the next day, I go in there with a hoe, and I take all like my little 1 foot tall stems and all the weeds and shit that are in the bottom, and I hoe it all out. So now I just have garden beds full of dirt. Okay, so I've just, again, just accumulated or compounded just a small improvement that day. Then the next day I'm gonna go, I lay a ton of mats out, like that weed matting kind of black stuff. I don't know what you really call it. That was the next day. Again, just a small little improvement. And then the last day, I throw mulch down on top of it. So now I've got all my garden beds are cleared out. I've got mulch everywhere. It's looking pretty good. But I was able to start because I just focused on doing a little thing each day. I didn't focus so much on looking at this garden that's massive and overgrown and disgusting and thinking, well, this seems impossible. I can't do it. I just broke it down into small little steps, and I just said, okay, the first step's going to be, I'm just going to make it a little bit less gross, and then a little bit less gross the next day, and then a little bit less gross the next day. And I just keep compounding those little improvements over time. And now I have a garden that's clear. So, kind of funny examples, but just ones that are relevant to me that are I'm trying to use to hammer home the point of taking this compounding marginal gains mindset. I don't know exactly where I first kind of heard of that. Probably been a few years that I've been kind of talking to clients and the athletes that I work with about kind of taking this approach. But I think it's relevant for right now. Like I said, there's a couple of weeks back, I said I kind of tried to provide some advice on how people can return to the gym. And this is essentially what I was saying is don't just try and pick up where you left off, or don't try and make up for lost time or whatever. Just focus on, hey, where am I at right now? I still know where my end goals are. I still know what I'm trying to get out of this. And then just do a little thing each day. Just try and get a little bit better. Take your time. Don't get hurt. And so that was really the goal here, was just to kind of talk about this idea and then kind of tie maybe this together with some of the previous episodes that I've done, and to kind of paint a bigger picture. So, and hopefully the goal with this is that it sets us up for the next few weeks, where I want to kind of dive in a little bit more, either next week or the week after. I'm going to be having a guest on where we're going to actually talk about goal setting and the process that you go through to set goals that are achievable and all that good stuff. And I think goal setting is super relevant. So I kind of wanted to preface with this compounding marginal gains approach and that mindset before we go into goal setting, because sometimes goal setting can be intimidating for people, right? Because you paint this big picture of all the things you want to achieve, but now you feel almost hopeless because you feel like you're so far away. So before we get into goal setting and talking about all of that kind of stuff, I wanted to talk about, set your big goal, right? Think you want to have a garden that looks presentable, at least, right? And then just break it down piece by piece, step by step, and figure out, okay, how can I get from where I'm at now, this garden that looks absolutely terrible, to where I want to be? And that's just taking it one little step at a time. So hopefully you guys found this useful, but I'm just trying to get better at doing this kind of stuff. So I'm just showing up here on another Friday, just trying to get 1% better than I was last week. So if you like it, let me know. If you found this was useful, send me a message, comment, or whatever. And if you have other things that you want me to talk about, let me know as well. I would love to hear from you. Thanks for listening.